G'day and welcome back to the shed. This is part 3 of this His Master's Voice model 411, made in Sydney, Australia in 1941, and it's going really well. Since the end of part 2 I spent a couple of evenings down here in the shed surfing through the shortwave bands, and it goes really well on shortwave. I think the medium wave will need an RF alignment. I'm going to leave the IF alone because the cans are sealed and it seems to be picking up very well anyway. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say. But the other thing I want to look at is the cabinet, the elephant in the room, so to speak, except it's not in the room, it's out the back, but it does need some work and I want to make a start on it. I will come back to the chassis though after that, because there's a few things I still want to look at. The alignment, the magic eye, and I'm going to look at the possibilities around fitting Bluetooth to it. But let's get onto the cabinet and have a look at that. This little brass plate here on the back is the only reference to the model number. Definitely says model number 411, but there's nothing on the chassis itself. This is on the back of the cabinet, and overall it doesn't look too bad. Most of the veneer is pretty good. Obviously the coating or whatever it is it's got over it, I don't know if it's shellac or lacquer at this stage, is just about gone. We have some issues like this in the corner. It's a piece out of the veneer and it's just lifting a bit there. On this side, this bell panel is pretty good, it's intact. We've got some cracking around there. On this side though, we've got some delamination happening down here. This bell panel is starting to lift out and the material behind it is lifting off, so that's going to take a bit of work, as these cracks here can be filled as well. And on the edge here we've got a similar story with the veneer lifting off, and on this side it extends down the side. A bit more veneer missing down the corner here, and the same on the other side. On the top here we have the remains of the old His Master's Voice logo. I presume that's a water transfer. I doubt if I'll be able to preserve that. I'll try, but to be honest it's not looking very good. Another option might be to photograph it and see if I can get it reproduced and put it back on when I've finished. Now on here there's some patches of some kind of filler that someone's just smeared on and not even bothered to sand off. There's more of it down here. That looks pretty horrible, and I don't know what's under it. It could be lifting veneer, it could be anything. Unfortunately the filler itself is more of a problem than whatever's underneath, I would imagine. There's more of it at the back here. This whole corner has been filled up with something and just very roughly sanded down. There's a bit more there, and this looks like more filler that's just been laid over the top of it with a spoon or something. This trim piece on the right hand side, it's got this panel of fake speaker cloth which doesn't have anything behind it, but the one on the other side is completely missing, and I'm going to have to make something up for that. I'm not sure what at this stage. Now looking at the inside of the cabinet, apart from needing a really good clean up, there's a few other issues here. Just in the corner there's the remains of a valve diagram. I don't think we can do much about that. And over here there's an envelope which says pickup plugs, and they may have been those two plugs that were in the back of the chassis when I got it. Anyway, I've kept those. But down the bottom here in the corner there's a block missing that holds all the corner together, and on the other side the same thing. So the two front corners are not supported at the moment and could possibly pull apart if I was too rough with it. There's also a corner block missing here. Before I start pulling the cabinet around too much, I think I'll put those in just to make sure it's safe enough to mess with. And up here, here's where that trim piece is missing from above one of the side panels. First of all, I'm going to give it a spray with disinfectant, and then I'll get it up on the table and see what we can do with it. Should do the job. There we go, those should fit nicely in there, and the same at the top. I'll just stain them up to make them look the same colour as the other wood. Well, they're stained up, and when they're dry I'll put them in. Lucky I found this nice old piece of oak that I used for those, and I'll use it for that other moulding that's missing on the front. That's going to be a bit of a job. The first thing is to try and remove the moulding from the other side, the good side. And actually it seems to be just held in, there we go, it just pressed out, held in by a couple of nails, I think. So here we are, that's the one that came out. So I'll have to see if I can replicate that somehow. Okay, so I've cut a piece roughly to size, and now I've got to try and reproduce this pattern in it. So that's going to be fun. Alright, well, let's see what I can do to reproduce this little moulding thing here. And I've marked out the lines from the other piece, and I'm going to start by just putting some 2mm deep cuts along the lines. This is quite a fine kerf saw, and the depth of the teeth is just about on 2mm, so that's it. That's all we need. I did think of making up a scratch block or something like that, but I think I'll just wing it with a chisel. Okay. Now I need to extend these cuts around the end. So now with my favourite chisel, it's an old chisel this one, but if you want a good chisel, get an old one. Checking against the original, that's about right. A couple of little bumps in it here. Of course, this is the easy part. Then I've got to extend these around the front. That will be fun. But I guess slow and steady does it. It's getting there. Nearly there. And just finishing off with this small file, which is good if you don't want to accidentally take too much off. It's pretty close, I think. Close enough to get away with it. Now, of course, the next challenge will be to get in the same colour. I've decided the best way to start with matching the colour is to strip the varnish off the old one, because I'll have to strip them all anyway, and see if I can match the wood colour with some stain. So I've got some new paint stripper here that I've just bought. It's kind of seems to need stirring or something. Anyway, I'll put some of that on it. I probably don't need that much. This stuff has pretty ferocious fumes. I shouldn't be doing this in the shed, I don't think. Anyway, I'm going to tip this mess back into the tin. Maybe give it a good stir before I use it again. So I've stripped this and just rubbed it back with 400 paper because it went a little bit furry after the paint stripper. It really is quite a bit darker. Now I'm looking at these corner pieces that I made up, and they're out of the same piece of wood as this, so it should give me a good indication of how it'll stain up. Now this has got that oak stain on it. It's overall a bit darker, but this was rough sawn, whereas this is not. Neither is this. So if I wet this, I'll put a bit on the side there, it's pretty close. So I think I'm going to do this in the same oak. I can possibly take it off more quickly because I just let this soak in. Okay, so I'll brush this on. And I'm going to rub that off fairly quickly. I'll let that dry and see how it turns out. So now these missing corner blocks, and I'll just sand off any old glue that was on there to start with. I don't think there was, it doesn't appear to be much on this one. Okay, so I'll get some glue on this. And some down into the corner there. And place that in there and just give it a good rub backwards and forwards so that it seats nicely. That will be about it. Now another problem that I've got that I want to deal with before we get too involved is this lifting veneer here. This whole panel, well, the top half of this panel here, and there's a little bit at the bottom. And as you can see, it's not just the veneer that's peeling off, but the laminations behind it. So there's two thicker pieces and one thin one. And this will need to be glued back in first. I'm not going to attempt to glue the veneer on at this stage. I just want the laminations at the back to be glued in place, and I hope I can pull them in tight enough so that it'll be flat. So I'm running some masking tape down the sides because I don't want the glue to squeeze out onto the existing veneer and perhaps damage it. Okay, I've got my syringe filled with glue, and put the needle on it. So I'll start from the back, Get that down as far as I can. Just make sure I've got enough down there. Okay. I've made up this clamping block with tape over it so that it doesn't stick. You need about 3 hands to do this, but never mind. That's not too bad. Now if I line this up here and that up there, there we go, and pull it in nice and tight. Alright, next morning let's just see how this turned out. That looks pretty good. That seems to have taken quite well. It does seem to be a little more out on this side, but this and this are level. So perhaps that's just the way it is. In fact, looking at the other side, it's about the same there. Now I thought I'd have a look at this filler on the top here and just see what happens. It looks like most of it's just sitting on top of the shellac or whatever it is. And the spots where it's going through though, that'll probably have to be sanded out. Except for this mess in the corner here. It looks as if this finish will mostly just scrape off. I'll just try these 2 spots here. Yeah, because the panel begins to curve here. Looks like there may have been a small dent or something there that was filled, perhaps. Oh, just came off. Well, it doesn't look too bad. There is, yeah, an indentation here and one there, which I think they had attempted to fill. It's going to come off. There may be another dent under that, I don't know. Okay, so this veneer has lifted right along the edge here, all the way up to the top. There's also some further delamination at this corner. Shut up, rooster. So I'm going to inject some glue under this and see if we can clamp it back in place. We'll start underneath this delamination here, and it goes in quite deep, so I'll put a fair bit under there and up there. Now up under here, And that's pretty much that corner done. Now I'll just run it along the edge here as best I can. So it's just laying a bead of glue all the way along. And that should squeeze out the end. And this end has a few patches. So I just want to get glue under all of it there. Oops. Okay, that should be all right. Okay, so I've got tape on the other side of this. I'm going to place it on there. With a weight on top of it. I've got a couple more pieces of veneer missing just on this band here along the bottom of the cabinet, and a couple of small blemishes here. I don't know if you can see them. Also there's a split right through this piece of timber here. So to get better access to them, I'm going to take the speaker baffle out, and that'll enable me to put clamps on this. So there we go. Just looking at the split in this bottom timber rail here, I'll just get some glue into the joint first. It's pretty tight, but I think I can get some in. Actually, I might need to prise it open a little bit. That's better. Now the join is actually, or the split is actually misaligned. So I'm going to put a clamp on the top here. And that should pull it back into line. There we go. Now I'll just pop a clamp on here. And pull it in nice and tight. That will do. There. Clean the excess glue off. So I've cut a piece to fit in here. I'll just put a bit of glue. Just try and work it under the end of the other one too. And just slot it in there, and there, that should be alright. The grain runs up and down with this, so the first thing I'm going to do is cut it vertically so that I can get a decent edge, and just set that up straight there. Now I've cut a piece of veneer the right width, but I haven't trimmed it to length yet, so I need it to be cut just there. I'll take that onto the table and cut it square. Okay, there we go. That will, yep, just fit in there nicely. up a little bit. I might need just a fraction trimmed off that. Yep, there we go, that's sitting nicely now. So I'll glue that in. So the other thing I want to do before I start stripping it is to take out these two side panels. They're like little fake speaker grills, I guess. They're nailed in. I've already marked where they go so I can put them back in exactly the same spot. And there we go. And of course they have the original grill cloth on them, so we know what it was like. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get anything to closely match it. I've got some grill cloth that I think is quite nice, but it's not exactly the same. Now I've taken that side panel out. It sat in here, and I was just about to take this moulding out that sits in the bottom and just put a screwdriver in here to try and break the joint free, and I realised that the entire side of the cabinet is moving. This joint here is quite loose, and the entire side and front part of the cabinet is loose from the base. Looking at it from the front, the entire side of the cabinet is loose, and it's also coming away here, so I'll need to do something about that. So while I was looking at how to secure the side of the cabinet, I suddenly realised that this side is in a lot further than this side here. I think it's had some kind of a knock on this part of the cabinet, which probably explains why this piece of veneer was chipped away. And looking at it from the top, and I haven't really looked at it from upside down before, this piece of timber here is, well, about 10 millimeters away from there, and looking straight down on it I can see a nail through there, some cobwebs under here and a beetle or whatever, so it looks like it's been like that from some time. I had a horrible feeling that I'd done this, but if there's been time to have cobwebs and beetles under there, I guess it's been done for a while. Looking at it, I think I might be able to just get some glue down there and pull this back in with a clamp. There's a split in the wood here, but it seems clean, so if I can get some glue in there and then pull it in tight, I might be lucky. Okay, so I'll do a dry run first without any glue, just to make sure it will pull in. So I don't want glue on it and then not be able to get it to sit properly, so I'm just going to put a softening block in the front of it here, the clamp over here, just turning the clamp, and that does seem to be pulling in, so I think we might be right. I notice it's bowing out in the middle here, and there's a nail through there, so maybe that's what's hanging that up. I'll try another clamp there. Okay, so I'm putting this clamp right opposite that nail with a piece of wood behind it so I don't damage the front panel. That is going in now. Yep, that's looking good. Okay. Anyway, it seems to be an option, so I'll release this, prise it out a little bit, get some glue in there and clamp it up tight. Okay, I've still got some glue in the syringe, so I'll get some down in there with it, and a bit along here. Okay, that's the packing piece in there, and carefully doing up the clamp, and that's looking promising. The nail's popping through there, but that's alright, I can knock that back in. Yep, that looks good. Alright, I'll leave that to dry and then I'll address this sideways issue. We should be able to pull it all in and glue it up though. I don't think there'll be any major problems. So with that done, and that was this board here, you couldn't really see much from the top. I've wedged this open, just going to get some glue down in here and we'll pull that side in. I don't think it's as big a deal as I thought it was going to be. Alright, now if I take the clamp out, take the wedge out I mean, and I'll just put a clamp across here. And the glue's been forced out along the bottom here, so I'll just wipe that off with a damp cloth. Just thought I'd see what I can do with this His Master's Voice logo here. There's some nasty scratches around it, but I think we'll be able to deal with them alright. But I'm pretty sure that this is shellac over the top of it, and if it is, I should be able to put some metho on that and just melt the surface of it and blend it into the surrounding wood. Then I'll give the whole panel a coat of shellac, and that may go some way towards preserving it. So I'm just removing the, I presume it's shellac, up to the edge of it. Okay, I'm going to try smoothing the shellac off the surface with methylated spirit, and if I mess this up you're going to see it live. I don't know how it's going to go, but doesn't seem to be doing it any harm so far. Bit of dirt come off it. Well, that looks promising. I think we'll be able to keep that now. Well, that's pretty much all the structural work anyway done on the cabinet. It feels pretty solid now. That side's pulled in, everything seems to be okay. Now it's a matter of refinishing it. But the chassis needs work, so I think I'll get back to that. Well, I'm at my friend Reg's place in Perth, and like me, Reg likes to tinker with old radios, and in particular this STC here. Beautiful looking radio, but see that little blinking light on the top? It's got Bluetooth fitted. Now it's on radio at the moment. To turn on Bluetooth, and this is what I like about it, turn it off, turn it on again. Now it's on Bluetooth. Nothing coming through it at the moment. Could possibly play something, but the point is, turn it back on, it's on radio. And this is the board he's using, which he designed himself. Nice job. And the way he's getting around the hum problem is using a separate mains transformer. Here it is, tiny little thing, comes from China, runs into this power supply board, and this is where all the magic happens. So I was thinking of trying one of these in the HMV, and Reg has let me have this one to take home and play with, so we'll see how this goes. Now Reg has got a pretty good setup here, not that I'm jealous or anything, but look at all the room he's got here, and all these console radios. He tells me he just picked up this Philips today, and it's a battery set, but gee, it looks in nice original condition. Looks pretty original in the back too. And notice it's got the full bottom shelf for the batteries, but I think Reg has that sorted as well. I better not give away too many secrets, but I believe he's working on a secret power supply. And in case he runs out of things to do, there's a whole stack of consoles waiting attention here. And I thought I was bad. Geez. Well, here we are, back home. I'm not going to fit it or try it out just yet. I'm pretty keen to press on with the cabinet, but when I finish that, we'll have a play with this and see how it works. Now, the other thing I got from Reg while I was there was this Japanese Magic Eye tube, Toyo 6E5. So it's apparently a Japanese equivalent of the 6U5 or 6G5 that came with the radio and doesn't work at all. It looks very similar. I've taken the 6U5 out, and looking at them now, they're pretty much identical internally by the looks of it. Anyway, let's put this in and just see how it works. Two fat pins go that way. And this little bracket should just go on here. I'm not sure which way up this goes, but we'll see. So that sits in position nicely. Well, that came on very quickly, and it is really bright. I've turned the exposure down on the video so that you can even see the colour. If I put it back to normal, that's what it looks like. But it seems very sensitive. Now you can see the shadow at the bottom there.
Yes, in 99. Divided city of the capitals was Sydney. Now in Sydney we saw that...
And that is actually crossing over at the bottom there with strong signals. I need to centre it a little bit. It's a bit tilted, but I can sort that out easily enough. So that's really good. It works very well. It is almost too bright. I might even look at maybe reducing the plate voltage on it a little bit. I'm not sure. Make the phosphors last a bit longer, because they're hard to get, these things. I guess another option may be to look at the heater voltage and reduce that a bit. That would reduce the emissions a bit. I'm not sure. Might be okay as it is. Now, I managed to find some alignment instructions on the Radio Museum webpage. These are for a model 420. But it is so similar to this that I think we'll be right with them. At least I hope so. Now, I'm not doing an IF alignment. The IF stage is working very nicely, thank you. I'm going to leave it alone. But we have RF alignment instructions here, and it says to connect the signal generator to the aerial with a 200 millimicrofarad, I guess that's 200 puff capacity, to the aerial and earth terminals, dummy aerial. I don't know, I'm just feeding it into the aerial through a 0.001 cap there, and it says to set the signal generator for 600 kilocycles. I've got 2 volts RMS at 600 kilohertz, modulated at 400 hertz. Now it says rotate the tuning knob until the point is exactly on 600 kilocycles, and by means of the padding adjustment, which is the brass screw to the left of the gain condenser, align the receiver though so that the signal is tuned exactly to 600 on the dial. Now the brass screw to the left of the gain condenser, I think must be this one, covered in black wax and stuff, but from memory, and I'm not going to tip the chassis upside down at this point, I'm pretty sure that's the bottom of the oscillator coil. So if I turn this up, we should hear the signal. There it is there. And that is about 620 kilohertz, so it does need to be adjusted down a little bit. And by the way, I have got a meter hooked up to the output, but it seems rather pointless because it's just a matter of location rather than the amplitude of the signal at this point anyway. I might need it when I'm doing the aerial trimmers. So let's see if I can get this screwdriver into the screw for a start. Okay, so I'll just turn that down towards 600 and yes, I'm turning it anti-clockwise and that's bringing it in. I can actually use a magic eye too, it's registering on that. A little bit more. And that's it, 600 exactly in the centre of the pointer. It obviously will look different from there, and this scale is tiny anyway, it's pretty hard to see. Next it says tune the signal generator to 1500 kilocycles, set the pointer to 1600 and adjust the broadcast oscillator trimmer, which pretty standard stuff. Now the broadcast oscillator trimmer must be this thing here, closest to the mains transformer. So that will be this one here. That was our oscillator trimmer there. So yeah, that makes sense. These things are apparently capacitors, and I think the idea is you loosen the nut at the bottom and adjust the rod up and down and then tighten the nut when you've finished. So I'll give that a go. So 1500 kilohertz or 1.5 megahertz, still modulated at 400. And there we are. And that is a bit above 1500. I notice on the camera it looks at like 1500, but that's because you're looking down from a bit above. So you've got some parallax happening there. So I'll see what I can do to adjust that thing. Okay, I've loosened off that nut. Let's see if this one makes any difference. Certainly does. So bringing that up towards 1500. Yes, pulling it up is the way we want to go. Okay, that's the dial on 1500. As far as I can tell anyway. That'll do. Now I'll just tighten that up. Now it says to adjust the broadcast aerial trimmer, which I found out is this one here for maximum output, and also the RF padder. Now it doesn't show very clearly where the RF padder is, so I'm going to start with the aerial trimmer. And I'll do it by ear. See if we get any difference here. It's getting quieter. There we are, that's maximum there. I'm actually using the magic eye. I can just bring it in nicely with that. Now, the RF padder. I suspect that's underneath somewhere. I think that the printing's a bit messed up, but I think that says BC pad S, padders, I don't know. And it's got a line just pointing in here. Now there's nothing on top of the deck there, so I guess it means inside. So I'll have to tip the chassis up and see if I can find it. Well, I've tipped it upside down, but there is nothing here that could possibly be a padder. There's no adjustment in there at all, so I'm wasting my time here. I'll have another look on top, but I wonder if there is one. This is of course for a model 420, these instructions, and this is a model 411, so yeah, I don't know. Well, that might be all I can do, unless I can find this elusive RF padder, and you would think it would have one somewhere, but I've looked everywhere, I can't find it. I'm going to hook an aerial up onto it anyway and just see how we go for reception. There's nothing much up this end anyway, so that's the racing station. It's coming in around about 1200. Up here somewhere around 1080, which should be about there. We should get 6IX. Well, that looks to be in the right place on the dial. 6IX is actually marked over here, but I think the frequency's changed, so that's probably all it is. Lots of interference tonight, but I've got every light on in the place, so that's not surprising.
Invariably have the origin in a conflict of interest. Within months of beginning operations.
Look, I think we've got great fruit and vegetables. Great fruit. So I would say go for the whole traditional,
I think that's 6IX.
Yes, that's true. But that also means that they can be quite adventurous about what
It's not marked on here.
How does that
6PR I mean.
influence the way that you...
But 6PR obviously wasn't in operation because when this was made, because it's not here. Now that'll be 720 ABC, and it's coming in at about 720 on the dial, so that's about right. It should be marked as 6WF, but there's 6WF down there below 700, so again the frequency has changed since this dial was set up. So these stations around here are pretty much useless. They would have been quite useful in 1941, I guess. I've been thinking about this RF trimmer. It says here to set the broadcast aerial and RF trimmers for maximum output. That's at 1500 kilocycles. Now, I couldn't find an RF trimmer, but I've been looking at this diagram here, and there's this thing here which says, I think, BC detector, could be trimmer, it could be anything. Anyway, that's the only broadcast trimmer left. Now this is the one here, the one that it's referring to, and I checked underneath the chassis and it is connected to the tuning gang and also to the switch, so that it's switched out of circuit on shortwave. Now looking at the schematic, this has to be it here. There's a switch, it's disconnected on shortwave, it goes to ground. That's got to be it, and there's the tuning gang there. So I guess that's what I've got to adjust. I can't find an adjustment there. I know there's this adjustable cap in here. I can't find it. There's nothing attached to the coil that looks adjustable to me. It's all covered in wax. So I'm going to leave that alone, but so long as the RF stage gang and the other one agree with each other, we can achieve that by adjusting that. So I've set the signal generator up 1500 at 400 Hertz. We're on channel 1. Just hit output. There we go. So I plug it in and turn it on. I've got it hooked up to the aerial again, and there it is at 1500. So I've got the base loosened off. I'll just set this for maximum. It's going down. I'm finding that a little bit hard to find the peak, so I'm going to turn the speaker off and work on the meter. Now I can turn it up good and loud until I've got a reading on the meter. Okay, so there we go. Just try and adjust it a little bit. See if it comes up at all. It's going down. So lifting it up again. That seems to be it about there. Well, I don't think that made much difference. I don't know if it was worth it, but it seems to have peaked it at least. I know I've got it as good as I can. I think now I should go back and adjust the oscillator and work through it again. But I won't make you watch all of that. It's not all that exciting.
I can solve it in an instant.
At instant speaking.
Well, this is going really well. I'm very happy with the way it's turned out. The cabinet's coming along, and next time I think we'll get it all back together and that'll finish it off. One thing I did neglect to mention is that this dial was made for me by Michael Raanan, Radio Mike, and I'm going to put a link in the description. He does really superb reproduction dials, and this is no exception. It's great. So I'm going to leave it here. We'll come back next time and get it all finished up, and we'll get that Bluetooth set up. That will be interesting. Okay, so thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Bye for now.